Hi, if you don't already know me, my name is Kaylee. I am a gut health nutrition coach. I help people to overcome their chronic gut and digestive issues at the root using the principles of ancestral nutrition as well as other holistic health principles. In today's video, I'm going to talk about anti-nutrients, what they are, do they have health consequences, should you avoid them, pretty much everything you need to know about anti-nutrients. So yeah, before we get too far into this video, I just wanted to let you guys know that I do have a few spots open in my program, Ancestral Gut Healing, right now. This program is designed to help you to overcome your chronic gut and digestive issues at the root and to understand why they're happening, and then to give you a plan to overcome them step by step, how to change your diet to help heal your gut, to thrive, to nourish your body, and to make sure these symptoms don't come back. So if that's something that you're interested in, be sure to stick around till the end and I will talk more about that. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about anti-nutrients. So let's start with what they are. So anti-nutrients are plant defense mechanisms. So basically, animals can fight or they can run away as their defense. Plants are stuck in the ground. They do not have that option. So instead, they have these molecules in their body called anti-nutrients. So what these molecules do is they basically make animals sick if they eat too much. So basically, yeah, they make you sick if you eat too much. So actually herbivores can tolerate more than we can because we're omnivores, but still in the wild, herbivores will actually tend to change the plant they're eating so they don't overconsume one anti-nutrient. Obviously, they're not thinking about it in that way. They just know instinctively that they get sick if they eat too much of the same thing. So herbivores have a very different digestive tract than we do, especially ruminants. Those are the animals that have 4 whole stomachs. They can digest cellulose, which is a fiber in plants that we cannot digest. So they have it very different. We are omnivores. We can tolerate some plants. We can tolerate some anti-nutrients, okay, but we can't tolerate as much as herbivores. We really are meant to eat meat too. So yeah, we can't tolerate quite as many, so we tend to react more than animals would. Let's see. So then plants actually strategically place their anti-nutrients. So you're going to find the very most of them in the seeds of the plants. So when we're talking about food, seeds include grains, nuts, seeds, and legumes as well. So those are all considered the seed of the plant. They have the most anti-nutrients in them. And the reason for this is because the seeds are the plant's babies. They are how the plant reproduces. And the plants really want to protect this so that they can, make more plants and continue their species. So there's a lot of anti-nutrients in the seed. The other parts of the plant, so you have like the stems, the stalks, the leaves, those have the second most because they're structural, they're important for the plant to survive. If you take some, it's going to be okay, but if you take too much, it's not going to be good. So things like kale and lettuce and chard and broccoli and things like that, those are the next amount of anti-nutrients, but it's definitely going to be a significant drop compared to those seeds. So then the next is going to be the roots. So think potatoes, sweet potatoes, turnips, carrots, things like that. So that has less because it's underground. So it's kind of protected, not fully protected, but a lot more than the leaves. So those still have some anti-nutrients in them, but a lot less. Then we're going to look at the fruit. The fruit of the plant actually has practically no anti-nutrients as long as it's ripe because the plant wants you to eat the fruit. Because in the wild, if you go and you eat the fruit, and then, goes through your body and you dump it out, basically the seeds, this is assuming you eat the seeds whole. I don't know anyone that eats the seeds whole, but in the wild you might, or if they're very small seeds. So basically the seed would come out in a nice pile of manure and be fertilized. So it also helps the plant to spread to a lot of different areas. So the fruits actually have practically no anti-nutrients in them. because it's beneficial to the animal. If you eat the fruit, it doesn't hurt the plant in any way. So that's just a little how you can think about what foods are going to have more or less. When you think about fruits too, remember I'm talking about botanical fruits. So things like bell pepper and squash and cucumber, all of those are actually considered the fruit of the plant and have less anti-nutrients in them. So there are actually lots of different types of anti-nutrients which have different consequences. So I kind of briefly touched on anti-nutrients can make you feel sick, but there's a lot more specifics, and it just depends on the type of anti-nutrient and the type of food that you are eating. So I'm going to go over some of the main ones. So first we have lectins. So lectins are very common in the seeds of the plants, so grains, nuts, seeds, and legumes. Lectins can damage our gut lining. They can cause leaky gut. They can trigger zonulin, like I talked about in my last video, which is a compound that triggers a leaky gut. So it makes our intestinal wall permeable. It makes it leaky. Also, lectins can kind of scrape at the gut lining and cause like lesions in a sense on our gut lining, which is not good. So those are some ways that it can damage our body. Yeah, so that's not great. Then we have oxalates. So oxalates are in leafy greens like spinach and kale and chard. There's also some in potatoes and almonds and chocolate and turmeric, and there's some in a few other foods too, but those are the main ones. And we can tolerate some, it's not a huge deal, unless we have a lot of them. So mainly by a lot, you're gonna get a lot if you're downing raw greens all the time. If you are constantly having like raw kale salads, like green smoothies, things like that, this is where you're gonna run into problems with oxalates. Especially these green smoothies are so often full of oxalates. If you have like raw spinach or kale with almond milk and turmeric and then cacao, the oxalates add up quick. So I would really avoid those. They're not great for you. So the problem with oxalates is they love molecules with a 2+ charge, and a lot of nutrients occur in the state of having a 2+ charge. So like magnesium, now of course I'm blanking, magnesium, zinc, potassium, there's a lot of them, manganese, yeah, there's a bunch of them. So anyway, when the oxalate binds to these nutrients, what happens is it creates these like glass shards or glass needle looking like things that are very damaging to our body. So they're very sharp and they can lodge into different tissues. They can lead to things like arthritis or fibromyalgia, just pain. They can also lead to kidney stones. Yeah, they're just not great for us for that reason. Also, it's binding to those nutrients, so that's going to decrease our absorption of some key nutrients. So then the next one I'll talk about is polyphenols. And this is a very broad category that includes a lot of like sub-polyphenols. So like tannins, curcumin, flavonoids, all those different kinds of molecules are also types of polyphenols. So this one is heavily debated. A lot of people say polyphenols are like great and they decrease inflammation. That's where you'll hear people say wine is good because it has tannins in it and that kind of stuff. But the problem is these studies, they looked at these anti-inflammatory molecules in our body and the levels of those after eating these foods. So, it's not super isolated that it's the polyphenols in these foods, but basically eating these foods and then realizing them going up. From that, the mainstream conclusion is, wow, anti-inflammatory molecules in our body went up after eating this food. They must be anti-inflammatory. However, there's another hypothesis that these foods are actually inflammatory and they were in our body, they were causing inflammation, so our body creates anti-inflammatory molecules to combat that. So there is not a lot of evidence, as far as I know, to go either way. So Polyphenols are a little bit up for debate. You know, some of these anti-nutrients are pretty clearly bad for you, and some of them, it's just a little bit unclear. And I think polyphenols is definitely an unclear one, to me at least. So with that being said, there is a branch of them that is definitely not good, and that's isoflavonoids. And this is what you find in soy. So these are going to be the compounds that are phytoestrogenic. So they mimic estrogen in our body and cause hormone imbalance, cause estrogen dominance, and all of the consequences that come along with that. So isoflavonoids, not great, mess up our hormones. They're in soy. They're also in flaxseed, wheat, peppermint, I believe. They're in a number of things, but a lot of them aren't nearly as bad as soy. Soy is the worst. Flaxseed's not great. Sesame, I think, is kind of high as well, and wheat, but soy is like the highest of all. So if you avoid soy, you're pretty much good on those ones. Yeah, so then that brings me to the last one I'm going to talk about. There's other anti-nutrients, but I'm just talking about the main ones here. So the next one I'm going to talk about is phytates. It's also called phytic acid. So these bind to nutrients because another function of anti-nutrients is actually storing nutrients in the plant's body. Well, body is kind of a weird word, but in the plant structure. So that's where this binding comes into play, like with the oxalates. So the same thing happens with phytic acid. It loves to bind to those 2+ charge molecules. So when we eat things with phytic acid, oftentimes the nutrients are still bound to that, or it will bind to other nutrients we ate. So that is partly why plant nutrients are often not nearly as bioavailable as animal nutrients are, because they can be bound to phytic acid and never get broken off, so they don't get small enough to be absorbed into our bodies. So that's a big problem here, where it can lead to nutrient deficiency. You'll see this a ton in those 4 I keep talking about: nuts, seeds, legumes, and grains. So yeah, let's see. The interesting thing, though, is because it binds to nutrients, phytic acid also binds to heavy metals, because they're often 2+ charge molecules as well. So one benefit of phytic acid is it can bind to heavy metals and make sure they come out in our feces instead of be absorbed into our bodies. So, you know, it's a benefit, but it's not really worth the drawback of it also binding to nutrients, because there are other things that we can do to avoid heavy metals, to cleanse our body of heavy metals. You can use other binders like chlorella and spirulina and activated charcoal and those kinds of things. Those are great binders, but yeah. So you don't need phytic acid to bind to heavy metals, but it is interesting that there is that pro there. Also, one thing to note is phytic acid can be broken down pretty well by sprouting, fermenting, soaking, doing all those things I always recommend. Yeah, it can be broken down pretty well. So if you want to enjoy some of these foods, it's not like you can never have them. It's just you want to properly prepare them and be mindful of how much you're consuming. Yeah, so basically that's what anti-nutrients are, and just like 4 main types and foods that they're common in. So I wanted to wrap this up by talking about my overall thoughts on anti-nutrients. So I think keep in moderation. It's very good to be knowledgeable about which foods are high in anti-nutrients, which again are the seeds, grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds. So these are the highest. The ones that haven't been properly prepared are even higher. So I think it's good to have practically no nuts, seeds, legumes, and grains that haven't been properly prepared. So yeah, I practically just don't eat those that haven't been properly prepared. But then, you know, you can leave it to if you go over to a friend's house or go out to eat on occasion, you don't have to worry about it. Yeah, but avoid that. But then when you are eating the ones that are properly prepared, I would just kind of keep it in moderation. I wouldn't be having like tons of these all day. That's not great for you, but if you want to have a little, that's fine. And then you also have to think about your gut health. So if you have leaky gut, if you have Crohn's disease, if you have ulcerative colitis, if you have intense, gnarly gut issues, you probably just want to cut this food group out entirely, the seeds I'm talking about. You might be able to tolerate a tiny bit, but you're just going to heal faster if you cut that food group out for a while, and then in the future you'll be able to eat it again as long as you're properly preparing these things. So keep in mind the state of your gut. That's definitely going to impact these things. Also, if you have autoimmune issues, that comes from leaky gut, that comes from gut issues. That's another case where you're going to want to cut these foods out for the time being. But yeah, so you can adjust kind of how much you're eating to your own situation. Another thing I want to touch on is pick your favorite high anti-nutrient foods and eat those ones and forget the rest. For me, I love peanut butter. I think it's delicious. I've always loved peanut butter. So when I had really bad IBS and I was healing my gut, and I actually did a keto diet for a while, so I was not really eating any grains, nuts, seeds, or legumes. Very, very rarely I would have any. I ate peanut butter the whole time though. It's technically a legume, but yeah, I ate peanut butter the whole time and I was still able to heal. I just really, really loved it and it still worked for me. So, you know, you can pick your favorite ones, but like, I don't care about cashews or garbanzo beans or sesame seeds or flax seeds. I just don't care about those things personally. So I just don't even really bother with them. It's not like I'm opposed to ever eating them again, but why would I bother to put a meal with a ton of things that I don't even like that are high in anti-nutrients? So pick your favorite ones and eat those ones, and, you know, forget about the other ones for the most part. Let's see. So then, okay, also for veggies, the ones that are botanical veggies. So I'm not talking about the things we think of as veggies that are technically fruits, like bell peppers and cucumbers and things like that. But I'm talking about like kale and spinach and broccoli and Brussels sprouts and things like that. It's really good to cook them because remember, this is the second highest group in anti-nutrients. So having them raw, anything raw plant-wise is just going to have more anti-nutrients, except for fruit. Fruit is fine. But yeah, so these foods you really want to cook. Carrots is fine to have raw. It's okay to have lettuce raw, you know, stuff like that. On occasion, a little bit of raw isn't a big deal, but you don't want to be downing raw plants all day. That is not good for your digestive tract. It is very harmful. So don't down raw plants all day. Instead, cook the majority of your veggies, and that will definitely reduce the anti-nutrients. It'll make it easier to digest. It just makes for a better time, you know. Like if you're having cooked greens, sometimes I enjoy the taste of cooked greens. I like them. I don't freak out about the oxalates because I don't have them all the time and I'm cooking them. But, you know, if you're having raw spinach salad every day, that's going to be a bit much on the oxalates and not great for you. So just keep these things in mind. You can also ferment veggies. Fermenting is great for reducing anti-nutrients, and it's great for your gut microbiome as well. If you're really sensitive too, with the fruits, you can skin them and remove the seeds. So things like cucumbers or squashes, things like that, you can do that, and that will decrease the anti-nutrients and make them super, super easy. So this is especially good if you are coming off of a more restrictive diet. So if you were basically carnivore for a while, or just had a more restrictive diet, you finally healed your gut and you're starting to introduce these foods, this is a great thing to do. Just peel, skin any of those botanical fruits that we think of as veggies, get rid of the seeds, and cook them well, and they'll be very low anti-nutrient, very easy to digest. Let's see. That's kind of the gist of it. So yeah, that's the gist of anti-nutrients. I do have an article as well, which I'll link below. In the article, it's just like a little bit more sciencey, and there's some references if you like to look at those kinds of things. And then there's also some charts, or not charts, there's just lists of what foods are high in anti-nutrients as well. So if you want a little bit more detail on that kind of stuff, or you just want a little thing to reference, I'll link that below. And then also at the beginning of this video, I mentioned I have a few spots open in my program, Ancestral Gut Healing, right now. So yeah, it is a program designed to help you to get to the root of your gut issues, to figure out why they're happening, and then I give you a plan to follow, step-by-step plan, what to do to heal these issues at the root, how to change your diet into a diet that is gut healing and nourishing, and helps you to heal for the long run so that you can overcome your symptoms fully and just not have them return at all. So yeah, if that is something that you're interested in, be sure to book a call with me. I have a link below, and in the call we will map out a strategy for you to overcome your own specific gut issues, and other health problems as well. And yeah, and then I can tell you more about ancestral gut healing, and we can see if it is a good fit for you or not. So yeah, I would love to talk to you. So yeah, feel free to book a call below. And thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for making it to the end. Yeah, I'm so happy you watched it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you know anyone else who could benefit from this, please share it with them. You know, if you want to, you can like, or you can write something below. If you have any questions, feel free to write them in the comments. All that stuff helps me out. And yeah, if you want to see more videos on ancestral nutrition and gut healing, then feel free to subscribe. I will be sharing more videos. So yeah, thank you so much for watching.